Okay, folks, we're live on the air. Um, One way or another, people were going to ask me about the draft. What were my thoughts? What are my thoughts on it? I'm just gonna put this out here, right here and now, just so we get this shtick out of the way. And I'm just gonna put this out there. What you say, your mileage may vary. I get that. But in all honesty, I think bringing back the brand extension, the draft, call it what you will, I think is a huge step back in the sense of I don't feel like we have enough WWE wrestlers to actually warrant the necessity of two differing brands. Now, I appreciate there needs to be some kind of shakeup in the system just to keep things interesting again. Shut up, Wade. But I don't think this is the way to do it. Because, let's just call it for what it is. There are going to be ramifications whereby title unifications that happened in 2009 and 2010, respectively, and also by extension, the Undisputed Championship unification match at TLC 2013 will now be made pointless. Because the whole reason that they put the tag titles back together with SmackDown's WWE tag team titles and Raw and ECW's World tag team titles were put back together because they wanted to see competition from both brands because it was getting stale. And in a similar vein to what was happening in 2010 with the Divas Championship that got drafted to Raw, with Maryse going over, and then seeing Melena going over to SmackDown as the Women's Champion. And then we had that title unification at Night of Champions with Michelle McCool. I think was it Michelle McCool? No, it might have been Layla, because she was the last ever women's champion before they brought in this newer version. And that was a title unification match between that champion and Melena as the Divas champion, who in a lot of ways I think is highly underrated as a performer and as talent, and the girl was absolutely gorgeous as well. I'm just putting out there because, I think John Morrison, when he was with her, I'm just going to say this, one of the luckiest men walking God's green earth. I'm just going to put that out there. And then after the brand extension was kind of brought to an end with the original wave, because by the summer of 2011, with Triple H being able to go onto Raw and SmackDown as the chief operating officer of the WWE, which is basically another name for the commissioner. Let's just call it for what it is. I think even he saw the value in, let's not have no more divisions. Let's have no more boundaries, no more of these interpromotional matchups. Let's just see them go on both shows because let's face it, it's what the audience want to see. I was never a fan of the brand extension, in all honesty. I thought it was a stupid idea from the get-go. But that was done at the point in 2000, because when the WWE was then the World Wrestling Federation, when they purchased WCW, it was probably, on one hand, you could argue it was one of the best things that Vince McMahon could have done. But the other flip side to it is it was one of the stupidest things you could have ever done because the WWE had no competition. And that's the whole thing that I think is a little bit misguided with bringing the draft back. And I'm noticing the prayers in the comment section saying we need as many titles as possible. Look at all the careers that are going almost nowhere. The problem I see with the tag team division specifically, by having, let's just say for the sake of discussion, they do put the rule that the tag team champions will only be on Raw, you're depriving SmackDown of tag team champions. I liked the idea, again, not a fan of the brand extension. I like the idea where you could have champions, the tag team champions who represent SmackDown show up on Raw and compete against the very best that Raw had to offer. And same, flip of the dice, you could have the tag team champions representing Raw go against the best that SmackDown had to offer. And considering we don't have as many female WWE superstars, because as most people remember, the word diva has been retired because Lita made it perfectly clear that the female athletes are superstars just like the men, and she's right. I got no qualms with that. But what I have an issue with is if the women's title is going to end up on Raw, then what does that say for the women on SmackDown? It's like, are they not going to have a title to go for? Here's what I think. I think we should go with a very similar idea and mentality that they had with the original brand extension that began in the spring of 2002. And it's simple as this. The back then, the then World Wrestling Federation Women's Champion and the WWF Undisputed Champions were exclusive to both brands. At the time, Jazz was the women's champion. She could go to and fro, Raw to SmackDown. It gave the SmackDown women opportunities that they would not necessarily normally have. And by extension, the Undisputed Champion could go from Raw to SmackDown. Because we had a time where there was a time at that point, before Triple H lost to Hulk Hogan, Triple H was a member of neither brand. Although Vince McMahon seems to have this mindset of, oh, if you lose, you become an exclusive member of the SmackDown roster. And I'm like, shouldn't Triple H choose? Because he wasn't picked. But then I like the idea where Undertaker won at Judgment Day 2002. He represented Raw, and for a straight 2 months, Taker could go from Raw to SmackDown, SmackDown to Raw, and have differing rivalries, different clashes of superstars. And to me, that made total sense. Because you want the best of Raw competing with SmackDown. And I think that is the rule that should be put in place. Now, I had a conversation with Oni Rikaku the other night. If you're listening out there, Oni, how you doing? Hope things are all right. Not going to get into that personal thing. He said that apparently they had been trying to figure this out for months, and they still have no idea going forward. Here's my 2 cents that I'm just going to put out there. Whether they choose to do this or not, they probably will, and more fool them, because they need about as many good ideas as they can possibly hammer out at the moment. One of them should be Vince McMahon's retirement, but that's neither here nor there, and I'm not alone in that, because many people have been saying this for years, including Random DCE, Oni Rikaku, Gorak Weavile, the L-Man. I'm not sure what the Prez's take on Wacky Mackey is, but... And I'm procrastinating, and I'm getting off on a tangent. Y'all know this by now. Here are the 3 champions, although with regards to the tag team champions, let's just go with the 3 sets of champions that should be exclusive to both Raw and SmackDown. The tag team champions should be exclusive to both, because there aren't enough tag teams to accommodate both Raw and SmackDown. The Women's Championship, exclusive to both, because we don't want to have this period of uncertainty again where The women's title was on Raw, and for 6 years there was nothing for SmackDown. That's why the Divas title became a thing. Ooh. Ooh. Wow. Folks, if you're watching this, the Prez just put this in the comment section. Add me to that list. This product is tanking harder than the XFL. Folks, I'm just going to put this in the comment section. Hashtag Savage Prez. That's just wow. He also says, at least with Vince in charge at his age. Right. I've said this, and I've stated this many times before. I don't think Vince should retire because of his age, because that is a cop-out argument. I think he should retire because the man just doesn't have any creativity. I mean, there are plenty of people who are further along in life than Vince and still have plenty of creativity and freshness to keep themselves going. And I can name two off the bat. One, Stan Lee. Because Stan is so in touch with the Marvel audience and readers today that he wants to see things evolve, progress, and change for the better. David Attenborough, who is a narrative commentator for wildlife programs, on the BBC, and the guy has been consistently popular for the last 30 to 40 years, because I think what is good with him is he keeps it simple and effective and doesn't try to do anything too convoluted with his narrations or anything like that. He just wants to tell a story with these wildlife programs, but do it in a way that everyone can appreciate. And I think Vince McMahon is younger than both these gentlemen by at least a good 20 years. Oh no. The Prez has just put in the comments section below, and I quote, now that you mentioned Stan Lee, I now have an image of Vince McMahon crawling around on the W headquarters. Okay, I don't normally share little stories like this. Random DCE, if he's ever listening to this, we once plagiarized the 60s Spider-Man theme, and he just simply came out with this little gem. Vince McMahon does whatever a jackass can, blushes red when he says, "Who the hell do you think you are? Look out, here comes Vince McMahon." Yeah. And I just saw chimed in afterwards saying, in the Vince McMahon, friendly neighborhood Vince McMahon. And he's looking at me going, friendly? Like, what are you, crazy? And I'm like, how long have you got today? But yeah. I don't need to picture Vince McMahon in red and blue spandex. Ugh. That's an image no one wants to see. All that you need is take that scene from Spider-Man 2 with J. Jonah Jameson putting on the Spider-Man costume, Photoshop Vince McMahon's head onto J.K. Simmons' body. Yeah. There's your nightmare fuel for the day, kiddies. No. Yeah. He goes, he's certainly not a friendly neighborhood, Vince. Ask CM Punk. Yeah. You know, I'm just not going to give any more attention to what CM Punk is doing, because now I'm still a CM Punk fan. I still respect and admire what the guy stood for and still does, but he just keeps banging on about his exit and the way he was treated in WWE. It's like, yeah, Punk. Love you, dude. Really do. But that was 2 years ago. Just have your fight in UFC so we can all have closure, we can all move on, and more importantly, so you can move on. Now back to the draft. That's what I think should happen. 3 champions are exclusive to both brands because that's just logic and common sense. We don't need 2 world champions again because we're at this stage where the world heavyweight title was irrelevant even before the brand split came to an end in 2011, although it got a little bit relevant again when there was that feud between Randy Orton and Christian. And I know L-Man's probably listening and he doesn't want to be reminded of that, but it did make the world title something important again because it hadn't been important for a while. Probably, to be fair, even when Edge had it, there were a couple of times where he didn't have the title long enough, it didn't really add any importance to it. But, I mean, I get the idea of, the United States title is on Raw and the Intercontinental Championship is on SmackDown. Make those 2 brand exclusive. And Steph is talking about bringing the Cruiserweight division back, so presumably the Cruiserweight title's coming back. Here's an idea for SmackDown. Bring back the Hardcore title. Bring back the 24/7 rule. There's a good idea for you. Prez is just saying, so if we only have 1 world champion, what titles could we bring back? Maybe the European title. I would like to see that come back in some form. And here's the thing. Lana actually posted onto her Instagram a photo of the European title before it was retired, but now with the WWE current logo on it, and she was told to take that down. So I think there was the plan to have Rusev bin the United States title and have the European Championship in its place, which is very, very similar to one of the storylines from WWE 12 where Sheamus binned the US Championship and had the European title instead as part of the stable, the United Kingdom. But again, I don't think we necessarily need to bring back multiple world titles because we will end up with a situation like we did with the Alliance in 2001. And it was ended properly, but the way it was done with regard to announcing that WWE bought WCW was just poorly managed. So, again, the Undisputed Champion and the Women's Champion, both exclusive to Raw and SmackDown, make the Tag Team Champions exclusive to both Raw and SmackDown. Because, again, we don't need a second Women's title. We don't need a second Tag Team title for SmackDown. Just have them exclusive to both brands. Because Charlotte will likely want to test her mettle against the best that SmackDown has to offer. And Dean Ambrose will want to test his mettle with the best against Raw. I don't want to see divisions again because that's just counterproductive and extremely regressive. In an age where people talk about progression, evolution, and advancement, WWE are taking a step back in the wrong direction. It wouldn't be such a bad thing if TNA and ROH were at the same level of WCW and ECW, how it was back in the day. And let's just call it for what it is. WWE took a lot of ECW's concepts, like with the Hardcore title, for example, and bringing some of the extreme effects into the World Wrestling Federation. But then again, Paul Heyman was on the payroll at the time ECW was a thing. Because some will remember the invasion of ECW back in '96, because I think King said something to the effect whilst either on commentary or doing a promo in the ring, we're laying out a challenge. Paul Heyman comes out and says, "We accept." Again, I don't think we need to we don't need to see the brand extension again. There's nothing we can do about it now because, what's done is done. I just think that wrestling organizations really need to bring and step their game up just to be able to challenge the WWE. And even with the WWE, as poor as it is right now, they are far too big to be challenged right now. And I really hope that Jeff Jarrett's Global Force Wrestling does take off and actually becomes what he wants and needs it to be in order to take it right to the WWE's front door and saying, your product's kind of sucky. You're not giving the people what they want. We are going to give the people what they want. We're going to give them fresh and innovative new ideas that nobody's seen before, because people are tired of you. You're not challenging yourself. And this is one of the reasons why I think Vince McMahon needs to go, is because I don't think he has the creative drive anymore. And again, age has nothing to do with it. Like I say, Stan Lee, the man's in his early 90s and he's still creating. There's something wrong when an audience is crying out, before they made Dean Ambrose the undisputed champion, when an audience was crying out for Dean Ambrose, but Vince is convinced that the people want Roman Reigns. No, they don't. I think when it got to that point when you heard some of Roman's promos that you could clearly tell Wacky Mackey had written, it's like, you're an disrespectable, despicable, suffering succotash. People are like, what? But via the same token, Roman winks to the audience as if to say, I know it's terrible. Roman, as a person, I don't have any problems with, because the guy did actually go to acting class, to vocalizations, because he did genuinely want to improve. And some of the stuff that I've seen from his early days in NXT, where he's this kind of arrogant heel and whatnot, it's like, why don't you let him do this instead of the forced, candy-coated promo scripts that you do for him? It was a lot more simplified during the Attitude Era, where they would give a rough idea of the script to Rock and Austin, say, these are the points we want you to hit, but feel free to put your own spin on it, because then it feels natural. Then it feels genuine. Then it's coming straight from the heart. Same thing with CM Punk's pipe bomb back in 2011. None of that felt forced nor scripted. And Punk doesn't strike me as a guy that would do it that way anyhow. But when you compare promos, like anytime Austin would do a promo where he's, being so vocal on the mic to the point where you feel like he's shouting, and then to listen to one of Cena's regurgitated, I will fight for the people, wear their colors true, 5,283. You're like, okay, love what you do outside the ring. Love the fact that, you're a good Samaritan, but dude, this is one of the reasons why people don't like you. You say the same stuff over and over again. At least with Rock and Austin, they kept it fresh. They, especially some of the things that Jericho would come up with back in the day with things like trash bag ho towards Stephanie. I mean, that was innovative. That was fresh. That was original. Whereas now, Jericho is almost a parody of himself because I've seen the whole heel shtick from him before. It's not fresh anymore. I would prefer Jericho just stay as the face, even if it's just to put people over. Just stay as a face and don't really do these monotone promos or this whole thing's like giving you the gift of Jericho. Drink it in, man. I'm like, what? It's like, what is this? And here's the thing. Considering Lesnar is a part-timer, what was the point of drafting him to Raw? And also, and this is something that nobody's asked, what does this mean for The Undertaker? Now, we haven't seen Undertaker since WrestleMania with the Hell in a Cell match, to where the stipulation was if Shane won, he would get control of Monday Night Raw. He loses, but McMahon still gives him free reign of Raw. It's like, well, that was pointless. What does it say for Taker? Is Taker going to be like one of these exclusive wrestlers where because of his legendary status, he can go to both shows, or he'll just be like, I'm The Undertaker, I'll do as I please? I mean, I don't know. They're not really answering a lot of questions. And what does this mean for The Rock as well? Because he hasn't said whether he's retired or not. So I don't know. It's like I said at the beginning, I just feel like this is really regressive, uninspired, and they're not doing anything fresh nor original. I mean, I don't know. The only thing I do know is that apparently they're going to keep the Undisputed title defended on both Raw and SmackDown house shows, at least up until SummerSlam. So, what then? And that just kind of sums up WWE in general these days. I think CM Punk said it the best. They have no idea going forward for anybody, with the exception of Cena. And this is going back to 2013 when Punk took his, 2 to 3 month break. Oh, dear. Preza just said, you know what else was a pipe bomb? The WBF, one that destroyed ratings instead of gaining ratings like CM Punk's pipe bomb did. Hashtag Savage Prez. Yeah, the WBF, that was doing an XFL before it was the XFL. Here's what I think with regards to Vincent McMahon. Please retire. Let Shane run the company. Let Triple H continue to do his thing on NXT, because with NXT, Triple H has his things together. He knows what he's doing, and NXT right now is the best damn product that the WWE's got. You look at the talent they've produced in the Wyatt family. I'm not a fan of the Wyatts, but he knew how to create characters. Sami Zayn, the things that guy can do between ropes and a turnbuckle, that shocked me. Finn Balor, probably one of the best strikers and mat wrestlers I've seen in a while. Shinsuke Nakamura, great competitor. And the things that they did for women's wrestling in NXT, Sasha Banks, Charlotte, Bayley, Asuka. I I sincerely hope that Asuka does not get brought up to the main roster. Not because I think she wouldn't be any good on the roster. No, it's just in NXT, Triple H knows how to utilize her properly. Vince doesn't have a freaking clue on the main roster. And it's a similar thing with Becky Lynch and Paige. I mean, I've not seen any of Paige's stuff from NXT, but the gist I'm getting at is I've been told is that she was much better utilized in NXT. Not saying she's not any good on Raw or SmackDown, but again, comes back to the fact Triple H is in touch with the audience. Vince McMahon is not. And I think one of these days it's going to get to a point where ratings are going to go down the plug hole like it was for WCW in the late 90s, that a meeting is going to be called and there's going to be a majority vote of the corporate members, shareholders, call them what you will, and they're going to say, no offense, you did great work for us, but we need you to we're voting you out. Because, you know, the WWE is a publicly traded company. They have people to answer to. And when Vince McMahon is doing ratings are down the pike. It's actually down the pike, dude, not down the pipe. You know, the man needs to go. I know it's gonna probably trigger a few people's memories from the first Spider-Man movie where Norman Osborn is ousted from Oscorp. But I think this is the way that it needs to go in order for the right kind of changes to happen. You know, Vince McMahon, great visionary with being able to bring us the first WrestleMania and many after that, the Attitude Era, being able to give us Rock, Austin, Jericho, Cena to a degree. But the man just doesn't have it anymore. And, you know, let's not get into the whole stuff with portraying R-Truth as an idiot. You know, Vince, it's not cute. It's not funny. It never has been. So I always find it interesting whenever I do these live streams on Google Hangouts. The conversation or the point of direction starts out as one thing, but then it becomes something completely different. But yeah, I'm just going to end on this. The WWE has a real good opportunity to make something good with this draft. I'm personally against it, but, you know, I've been against a lot of decisions they've made down the years, so why should this be any different? But they really need to think outside the box and not go for safe and predictable. Do as they did. Vince really needs to put himself in a position where how it was in the mid-90s when WCW was kicking their asses and he had to change business practices. It's that time again, Vince. The difference is it's not WCW kicking your ass. The one who's actually bringing you down is you. You need to change tactics. You know, when you get somebody like Random DCE, like Oni Rakaku, or even L-Man quit watching Raw when your product is so bad, you know, and best to my knowledge, Oni has been a fan since the 80s. I've only been a fan since 89. Not 89. I've been a fan since 98, 99, particularly when Austin was really, really gaining momentum. I mean, everybody knew who Stone Cold Steve Austin was in the same context that people know who Hulk Hogan is, even if you're not a wrestling fan. In the same vein that everybody knows who John Cena is. But it's gone to such a point now when longtime fans are telling you your product sucks. It's not them, being bitter. They're just saying it for what it is. The product is terrible. I haven't watched Raw on a regular basis since the fall of 2013, when the Authorita angle was really gaining steam and momentum. And I got to the point where I'm like, you know what? Stuff this. I'm done. I've got better things to do on Tuesday nights rather than watch a 3-hour piece of crap when I could be working on other shows that, that I keep a schedule with. Because when you're not doing anything to keep me entertained or to keep my focus, then you're doing something wrong. The only thing that was good about that particular period was Daniel Bryan and CM Punk. And I didn't like the way that they were poorly using Bryan. CM Punk with Paul Heyman feud was the only decent thing that they did during the fall of 2013. And when it got to the spring of 2014, when it was approaching WrestleMania 30, originally it was going to be Randy Orton versus Batista. No one was going to watch that stinker of a main event. I got nothing against Dave Batista as a person. I thought his character was terrible, but he came in at the wrong time when Daniel Bryan was possibly the hottest thing since Stone Cold Steve Austin. And again, Vince goes for safe and predictable, rinse and repeat. I know I'm repeating myself and I apologize. But he just will not think outside the box. When your viewership is going down and the people are saying, OMG, please change this. This sucks. This is awful. That's not the cue to keep repeating, because, if you don't learn from your mistakes, you're doomed to repeat history. Why can't you just do as you did once before and actually change tactics? That's all you need to do. It's just a few small changes here and there. I mean, you've got Dean Ambrose as the undisputed champion. That's awesome. That's great. That's the guy that people want as champion, not Roman Reigns, not the character. Rollins is a good heel, but he really needs to have a run as a face. But WWE just won't pull the trigger, and I really just don't get that. But, I've ranted on long enough. I've said what I needed to do, so I'm just going to leave that at that. Everyone in the comment section below, say your thoughts on what you think about the return of the draft with the hashtag WWE Draft 2K16. And yeah, what do you think about this? And do you think, does this really need to stay? And yes, the Prez is correct. Wrestling-wise, Rollins is amazing. That he is. Yeah. I've ranted long enough. Until next time, folks, good night from the night.